confirms the afterlife. There's a scientist who says it does not confirm the afterlife. There are
Yes,
logical explanations.
for Egyptian writings to talk about the same type of near-death experiences that people are having today. And this is another interesting thing. Near-death experiences, they're not a cultural thing. It's the same across the board, across the world, across cultures and religious groups.
Because we all have brains that are very much, they're 99% equal to one another.
Yes, but we all have different cultural upbringing, different understanding of life after death.
That has nothing to do with it. It has to do with the physical structure of the brain.
Yes, if we are hallucinating, don't we hallucinate, and don't we base experiences on what we know and how we grow up? And if we're in different, if it's the same.
Yeah, and so what? And so everybody's saying that they're talking to loved ones. Well, everybody has loved ones, do they not?
They do. I hope you have one.
I have a couple.
I hope somebody.
They don't listen to the show.
I guess we're both a little more argumentative than usual today. It's because we were so nice in our last podcast that
we were a little too cordial in the last one.
And now this has
been building up for a long time.
This is just...
all this tension is finally being released. The floodgates have opened.
Yes, you are wrong, though. Because I guess why I'm a little
wrong?
adamant. I think part of the reason why I'm a little adamant here is because I feel like this is near-death experiences is one area in the religious realm that I think could actually help and actually kind of help bridge the gap between science and faith, because you are always asking for the proof. What is the tangible proof of a life, of a life after death, of faith, of God? And for me, when I read these descriptions, when I was reading through Pam's story and lots of other people's stories that weren't coached, this is their experiences, it doesn't make any sense to me that it seems that the body and the consciousness are two separate things. And if that is the case, what happens to your consciousness once you die? And I think that I don't understand everything when it comes to life after death. I don't understand exactly where we go or how it works. All I can base that on is what I've been taught and how I grew up. But I think that people's experiences and the commonalities across the board are evidence that something is there. And yes, we don't have all the answers, and yes, science hasn't made all the conclusions and figured out exactly what's going on in our brain, because I will be the first to admit our brains are insane things that just, we can't understand everything.
I definitely don't understand your brain.
We also can't deny the same common things we can't deny near-death experiences happen. They do happen. And I always just get end with a huff.
You end...
I
can physically see you slumping.
Just that's all I have.
Your shoulders collapse.
I can't argue with you.
Hear that in your voice.
This one. I don't know what else I can say that would possibly help shed any light that would help you understand anything. I thought for sure with this topic you'd be like, yeah, you know what? There's something different, because why are these things happening? Why are these
Listen, what did I say at the start of the show? I said this is a valid pursuit of scientific inquiry. I think it's a legitimate pursuit. I do, because I think there's a study that could be done. But to already say, to say with any sort of assertiveness that there's an afterlife, based on the few cases we have, I think it's far too premature.
The few cases, they estimate that 25% are 18%.
800.
No, 18% of people who have cardiac arrest. Almost 20%.
Again, at 1/5. It should be 100%.
Why should it be 100%?
Because if we all die, we should all experience the same thing. If there's an afterlife, everybody across the board should experience the exact same thing.
Well, I'm sure whenever, you said, if some people aren't really dead, so maybe that's why there's a difference then. I don't know. But I do know, like I mentioned, my neighbor who was a hospice worker, she noticed consistently across the board when people were passing on, there was certain things that were the same.
When I die, if there's an afterlife,
yes,
I'm going to come back and haunt you.
I think you'll have better things to do if you're around.
I don't think I will.
Wait, does this mean you're dying first?
Probably at your hand after one of these shows.
That would be the only way you could.
So, if you lose an arm, do you still retain the function to use that arm?
Have you ever heard of phantom pains?
If you lose your eyesight, can you still see? Why are we to assume that after the death of the brain, we still have consciousness?
Because people who were dead had consciousness and came back.
People in near-death experiences.
People that were clinically termed dead by men of science.
My previous position, my previous idea that all of this flood of information that we have could literally just occur at the point of the body being revived. Not in the death state, but in the life state.
Well, it's funny because I even looked at different reasons for why near-death experiences could happen. Was it drug-induced? Was it hallucinations? I actually looked at, one of the things I looked at, is it a lack of oxygen? The studies actually there were indicating that it was not a result of a lack of oxygen.
I'm not saying it's a lack of oxygen. I'm saying it's a flood, an abundance of oxygen. I'm saying it's the opposite. I'm saying we're not experiencing these things at the point of when the blood cells are not reaching the brain any further. I'm saying once everything starts to reflood the brain and the neurons start firing again, there's a lot of electric activity that's happening.
Okay, that makes, so let's say on your case that you were dead and you came back, you were near death and you came back and all of a sudden all the floods are firing.
That's why everything is so fresh, because it's all happening right there. Like when you wake up in the middle of a dream, you immediately remember it.
But how is it that this woman, Pam, saw and heard things that she would not have known in any other way? How could she have seen and heard those things? Why was she looking over the doctor's shoulder at her own body on the operating table? And why did she see the tools and describe them in full detail and describe the sounds they made and the comments that the nurses made? If you were just unconscious for a while and all of a sudden came back, how do you explain that?
Who's to say that she, at the point when the surgery was happening, wasn't sort of in between the state of consciousness and unconsciousness?
Doctors have seen the state of consciousness and unconsciousness.
Yes, I'm just saying. Look, you can't just make one claim or another. All I'm saying, I'm basically taking an agnostic role and saying, look, I don't know. We possibly could never know.
You think there could possibly be an afterlife, even though you know for sure there is no God?
I'm saying you can't know. My belief is that there isn't. I'm saying we can't tell. Well, then what do you believe happens in the afterlife? I'm just curious.
What do I think?
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, obviously, but I believe, based on my understanding, as taught in the Mormon faith, I believe that there is a life after death.
What does that mean?
I believe that our spirits continue to exist. Basically, the Mormon faith teaches us that life on earth is a test. It's kind of a test to see what we're made of, but basically that our existence, that we existed before our time on earth and we exist after our time on earth. But our time on earth is kind of a test to see what we're really made of, who we are, what our relationship will be with God when we don't have all the answers. Kind of our struggle. And I really feel like you learn a lot about yourself when you don't have all the answers and when you do struggle. After death, the Mormon faith states that there is a time that I could go on for half an hour about what the Mormon faith believes.
Just give us broad strokes.
The broad strokes?
Yeah. You believe you're reunited with loved ones?
Yes, that our bodies continue, that our spirits continue to exist, that yes, we are reunited with loved ones. We continue to grow and learn and exist.
Grow and learn.
Yes, that it's that Earth is, that our time on Earth is just part of our existence.
How do we recognize one another without our bodies?
I don't know. I will let you know when I find out.
I mean, if an infant dies, is it going to have the capability of speech and recognition in others?
I don't know. Like I told you, I don't know a lot of things about this area. I've never been dead.
Would you only meet people from Earth and not other planets that might host life throughout the universe?
Once again, I don't know. How am I supposed to know these things?
I'm just saying, there's a lot of holes you could poke in this theory.
You know, I definitely don't have a clear understanding of what happens after death, but I do believe that there is something after death.
Do you think hell exists?
I think a state of hell. I don't think hell in the fire brimstone type of stories that we hear. I don't believe in that necessarily.
Even though they're in the Bible?
Lots of stuff in the Bible.
That you don't believe? But the Bible is God's
I think we're just talking about the definition of the Bible. I think we're talking about the definition of hell, the hellfire, damnation, I don't think a loving God is going to be sticking people in the fiery furnace of, I don't think that's how it works.
Then why would there be stories of the devil and hell in the Bible?
Because they're very motivating to get people to be good.
Oh, they are they? I think this is the first thing on which we agree, that stories of the Bible are used as motivational tools to control people. That is the first time we've ever agreed on Scripture.
Should we have a moment?
I think now we can officially hug it out.
Okay. Too bad we're in two different states.
We can finally. So then, do you believe in ghosts?
Ghosts.
As signs in the afterlife? People have reported ghosts throughout centuries. Do you believe
paranormal? I think they're probably, if there is a spiritual realm. This is a tricky one because I don't know too much about this. I don't believe in the sense of the paranormal, haunted houses, that kind of stuff. I think that's a lot of people's.
But a lot of people have reported seeing ghosts throughout the centuries.
My good friend...
Probably more so than people who've experienced near-death experiences.
Yes, and my good friend growing up in high school, she claimed she saw a ghost.
So you don't think that's clear-cut evidence of an afterlife?
I didn't see the ghost. If I saw one, maybe I would change my opinion, but I think there's lots of things with shadows.
You've also never experienced a near-death experience, and yet you are using that as a...
That's why I said I can't speak. This is not knowledge I have. This is a belief that I have in near-death experiences. But and seeing what other people and scientists have reported on it, I do believe that is some indication that there is something else. I don't know and understand fully what it is, but I don't think that near-death experiences are just some fluke.
But ghosts are?
And okay, we have documentation of near-death experiences. We don't really have documentations of ghosts. What documentation do we have of ghosts being? We don't have any way to measure that.
There's all sorts of ghost hunter shows and people have heard creaking in their haunted mansions, and
that's entertainment. That's wind.
How do you know?
Well, maybe there are ghosts. I don't know. Maybe there are spirits. I don't know. But I think in the sense of haunting, I don't think that there are ghosts. No. But since I do believe in an afterlife, and since I do believe our spirits continue after life, I don't know where those spirits go necessarily. Why they're waiting. Maybe they're out here hanging out, watching. I don't know.
Okay.
But I just know that I have not seen any evidence, as I have with near-death experiences, that would lead me to believe in ghosts. If I saw the same type of evidence I saw with near-death experiences, I'd probably change my opinion. But like I've mentioned many times before, my opinion is constantly changing and growing based on my experiences and based on my learning and knowledge and understanding. And right now, I just don't have any framework or any understanding to have an opinion on the topic of ghosts right now.
One thing I like to point out to those who do believe they've seen ghosts. I once had a friend who is actually an atheist and listens to this podcast, who said that I think in her town where she's from, there apparently is a haunting. Some old dead person has been apparently spotted numerous times by different people in a horse-drawn carriage going down some deserted street late at night.
Okay.
And this is the apparition. The person's up in their horse, up in the carriage with the reins, and that's the apparition. And I don't know if it's clear who this person is, but that's what they've seen. And so my question was, what is a ghost? It's the physical manifestation of a dead person, dead organic material.
Mm-hmm.
The spirit of the person who was once living is the ghost. Why would we then see an inanimate object such as a carriage or the guy's clothes? That whenever you hear a report of somebody seeing a ghost, it's always a physical description, including clothing. Why would the clothing have a spirit? Why would the clothing be in the afterlife? It doesn't seem to make any sense. And yet people want to believe that what they saw was actually real instead of just a trick of light or shadows, or maybe they imagined it. I mean, I've clearly imagined hearing things in my house that sort of give you the willies, but then you just realize, oh, it's just the house settling. It's just, you can always explain it away, but some people want to believe that what they saw was actually valid and real.
Well, and I guess I should explain too. I think in how the majority of the world views ghosts, and especially with our ghost hunting, hauntings and the ghost hunter shows, I do believe there are spirits. And so I do believe there is life after death. So I don't know and understand it. So maybe it's a different definition. And I have heard stories of people being visited by